For this section, we are going to briefly look at what academic integrity is, what it's not, and why it's important. Lambton College's policies say students who have academic integrity learn fairly and honestly without engaging in cheating, plagiarizing, or inappropriate copying, among other offenses. Plagiarism happens when you pretend something was your idea or your words. When you hand something in and you put your name on it, you're claiming it as your own work. If you've gotten information from another source, you need to make sure that you are telling your professor that you have used other sources. A lot of times people think that you only need to do that if you are using word for word. That's not the case. If it's word for word, then you need to do an in-text citation as well as quotation marks. So even if it's not your idea and you're using different words, but it's not your original idea, you need to make sure that you are using references. The next academic offense is fabrication. So with fabrication, essentially you're making stuff up. So sometimes people will research something and forget where they got the information from and then just make up a source. Or if you're performing a lab and you didn't actually go through the steps to do the lab and you just made up your results, that's fabricating. So those are also academic offenses. Cheating is basically using something you're not allowed to use. So it's going to depend on your professor. If, for example, you have an exam and they say that there's no study sheets allowed, but you sneak in a study sheet, that's cheating. If you are not allowed to use artificial intelligence to edit your work and you do it anyway, then that's cheating. However, if you have a professor that says, yes, please make sure that you use AI or make sure that you're using a study sheet, in that case, it's not cheating. So it is going to depend. And we're going to make sure that you are very clear on what you are allowed to use and what you're not allowed to use while you're working in this program. Did you know that you can't use your own work for 2 different courses? This is actually known as multiple submissions. If, for example, you created an essay in Comms 101 and then you've decided that this essay was amazing, you got 90% on it, and you wanted to go and use that in your next communications course, that is an academic offense. So sometimes you'd be allowed to, so you could always ask your professor or you could ask us if you've done an assignment in a different course that you'd like to use for this. But for the most part, you're not allowed to do that. Sometimes you're actually able to quote yourself. So if there was a time when you wrote something and you loved how you worded it, you can actually quote yourself. And if you have any questions about that, I can explain how to do a citation for that. Aiding and abetting is an academic offense that happens when you help somebody else cheat. So this can happen if you've taken a course and then you have a friend that happens to take the same course as you, even after you finish the course. So a lot of times you'll have people come up to you and say, hey, I'm taking that course too. Can I have your notes or can I have your studying materials? And that type of thing. And if you just say yes and you give them all your stuff, then what you're doing is you're actually robbing them of the opportunity to learn. So in that case, you're both academically dishonest. So you want to make sure that you can point people in the right direction, you can encourage them to ask questions, but you don't want to just be like, here's all my stuff. Unauthorized collaboration happens when you're working with another learner without permission from the instructor. So this can be a very simple one, like if you have an assignment that you both have to do and you sit down and you work on it together and then hand it in, obviously that is going to be an academic offense. But this can also happen with just sharing your resources. So if you were at the library for a research project and you got all these journal articles and you said, hey, these are great articles, and you shared them with somebody else, well, what can happen is now your reference pages are identical. And so that's going to end up being an academic offense as well. Someone who commits academic offenses are actually stealing from themselves. You spend 10 hours a week minimum to learn the material that you will need for your next step, whether it's employment, apprenticeship, or post-secondary. If you cheat and you get caught, you just wasted the time that it took you to cheat and have absolutely nothing to show for it. If you cheat and you don't get caught, you'll feel behind on your next steps. And another thing that can happen is you can feel like an imposter to people around you, especially when you go into post-secondary school or an apprenticeship or employment. It's when you look around and everybody seems to know what they're talking about and you don't. You want to make sure that you can confidently take your next step. So make sure that you have good academic integrity. And similarly, you care because of the fact that this is not all you're doing. You're not in ACE just to say, hey, I'm in ACE. It's one step on a journey that you're taking. And the problem is, if you're committing academic offenses, what you're doing is you're then taking this big chunk out of what you're supposed to know and what you're supposed to be confident in and the skills you're supposed to have. And if you don't know what you've claimed to know, you're going to find that you're struggling. So you may be able to make the leap from the one step to the next one, but if you grab on by your fingertips, it's really hard to pull up. And it's actually going to take you more energy than it would have if you just did it in the first place. You're working very hard for this, and you want to make sure that it stays valuable. If we let people cheat, then we ruin the value of the students who've completed their ACE courses before them. We didn't have to advertise our program to employers. Employers started to notice that learners who have ACE certificates are successful. If the people after you cheat their way through, they're ruining the reputation of the program. And our job is going to be to protect the value of the ACE certificate, and we're going to make sure that we do so. So that way, your hard work still has value months down the road, years down the road. Our goal in this program is to make sure that you are ready for your next step. We're not here to just penalize people. However, as we mentioned in the last slide, that we are going to protect the integrity of the ACE certificate and ensure that you receive every single learning opportunity that is possible. So if for some reason there is an infringement of academic integrity, and sometimes it is accidental, you're going to be asked to redo the assignment because we want to make sure that you have those skills. So it's not that you're just going to get a 0 on something. You're going to be asked to redo the assignment. And depending on the activity, the highest grade that you could achieve might end up being that 70% benchmark.